everyone, Melissa here, designer for Bello's Designs. Today we have a Talk Crafty to Me session on embossing. We see a lot of questions regarding embossing, and I hear people say that they either don't like to emboss or they don't get good results and various things. So today we're going to go over a few simple steps with embossing. So the first thing that you will need is your powders, of course, and Patty sells a tremendous amount in all sorts of colors on her website. And you're going to need either a VersaMark Watermark stamp pad. Doesn't have to be VersaMark. I highly recommend VersaMark. Wow makes one, Ranger makes one. This VersaMark is my favorite. It has a good pad on it. You get a good image when you use your stamps. It works really well. You can also use your VersaFine Clear, your pigment inks. These stay wet long enough that you can emboss with them. If you're not, the VersaMark Watermark, this is made for embossing. This stays wet a really long time. This stays wet pretty long, but not as long. But they work well. My biggest tip is super fine. If you're just starting out and you've never embossed before, get clear super gloss, super fine, or clear gloss, excuse me, or any of the colors as well. If the super fine powder is so easy to use, if you don't over melt it, and as long as you melt it long enough. That being said, you also need a heat gun made for embossing. Many people have the craft or the Ranger heated tool. This will work, takes longer. It has a lot bigger surface than your embossing heat tools. These are more concentrated, they get hotter. This is slower and you're more spread out. So highly recommend a embossing gun. Wow makes one. It's got 2 heat settings. I have this one, so that's what I'm going to use. For the stamp that I'm going to show you, this is by Sweet Poppy Stencils. It is the Christmas Bauble A6 stamp, and it comes with a bauble, a branch, the words Christmas, Seasons, Greetings. It's a lovely stamp to emboss. So I'm going to be using that. I've already embossed several because I don't want to run the heat gun the entire length of the video and try to talk over it or do a voiceover. It's just easier for me to show you what I've already done. Another handy tool is this Nuvo sweep brush to wipe off your powders, off your cards, just to clean up the mess. Handy. So let's go over some of the powders and what you get with them and what the results are. So I have pre-stamped these. This here is just on a white cardstock. I stamped using the VersaMark, and I embossed with the primary apple red. This is a super fine powder, and it is a beautiful red. It's nice and shiny. It's dark. It's a nice red. This image I did with Tulip Red from VersaFine Clear. It works just as well. And I did the clear over the top of this. So that's a result. It's just color. There's not much difference other than that. This is also done with the red on black. It was really pretty when you poured it on there, but as soon as it melts, of course, it goes translucent a little, so you lose the color. So that is primary red. This, I used the Nocturne and embossed with the Wow Clear Sparkle. Clear Sparkle is also another one of my favorites. It's a very fine powder. It's got very iridescent gold, or the glitter in it, and it's very fine. So it works really well, and it's very pretty on Lavinia's Fairies. Works nice. And this is the same on black card. So you can see all the sparkle really well on the black. It's there also on the white. It might not pick up on camera as well, since I'm shifting. So these two are done with embossing glitters. So there are embossing powders that are opaque, that are just a solid color. There are embossing powders that are metallic, so they give a nice shine, a metallic shine. And then there are embossing powders with glitter. The embossing powder with glitter is just that. The embossing powder is a white product with color coating. So when you melt it, the pigment of the color rises to the top, and the glitter will just float in there. These take more practice. They're a little bit harder to use, and they're very easy to overheat. So I'm going to do a demonstration in a minute on just how long it takes. They melt as fast as the regulars, so be aware of that. But these also have a clear. If you have some clear and you feel like your glitter is not working well, add some clear to your powder. It'll make a big difference. And another option for embossing powder is embossing powders that have texture. This is Black Puff. So it rises. I don't know if I can get that. It has a bigger rise than just the regular powders. It's also more of a gray tone. It's not a true black, but there's other textures that you can add the texture to your color to get that effect if that's something that you're looking forward to. Another tip is you can emboss on vellum. You can emboss on wood. You can emboss on plastic, as long as it is heat resistant. You can emboss on heat resistant acetate. There are many projects that you can use to do that. So I'm going to do a couple examples for you so you can actually see the process. Oh, I set these off to the side and I almost forgot about them. You can also, so this is gold on a red background, white, opaque white, and black on a red. These are just a Christmas pre-colored card, so work on that. Very great. This one here, I did the stamping and embossing on a metallic paper. This metallic paper, when I started, fairly smooth. When I started to heat emboss it, the paper crackled. So you might want to test your paper on just a small scrap or something with your heat tool to see how your paper is going to react to heat if it's a specialty paper. This is an example, and it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to show you what happens when you use your embossing glitters and overheat them. So around the edges, it's not as overheated as in the center, but if you can tell there in the center that the shine is all gone. It's just a kind of a smudged out. You still can see the image, but it's not. It's very bubbly. That's what happens when you overheat it. So as soon as you start melting and you start seeing the shine, because they look pretty matte when you put them down, and when you heat it, it gives off a shine. So be aware of that. And I also suggest just starting, pick your image, start at one side. If it's got a pattern, just follow it and come back around. Start top, bottom, bottom, top, left, right, however you like to do it. But just do one side all the way instead of just blowing air. You want to concentrate your airflow on one area and just keep it moving, and it'll melt really quickly. I'm going to show you that now. Now that I have glitter all over, this is why this little brush is handy. Takes care of that glitter. Okay, so I'm going to show you just on a piece of white cardstock. First with the VersaMark. I'm just going to ink that up. Same as any other. Just a good press. And let's see, on camera I believe that, oh, let's do the Ruby Romance. I think that one will show up well. So this is with the glitter. You'll want to have some sort of a piece of paper or a piece of copy paper or a coffee filter. Geez, coffee filters don't create static. They don't have the static cling to them, so your powder won't stick. I don't have that out right now, or I would be using that. Also, I completely forgot to mention a anti-static tool. I just have one in a bag. I've already done this to my paper because I have it preset, but you'll just want to use your anti-static bag. Just lightly rub it over your paper. If you are using a paper that you have designed and you inked up, make sure it is dry. If you are stamping a scene, for example, like a Lavinia scene, and then you want to just add some flowers, make sure your card is completely dry. Give it a good blast with your heat tool and make sure it's dry, and then go over the entire surface of your card with your anti-static before stamping and applying. That will make sure when you go to tap off your powder, it actually will come off. And you can just put it on there. This is kind of a big image, so just go around. You can give it a little tap. You can use a brush to get the excess glitter off, or a very fine paintbrush also works well, just to get into the small edges so you don't hit it too hard. So you can wipe all those little fine bits of glitter off. Because of the glitter having embossing powder in it, it will stick. Okay. And then you might have a little smudge where you're not necessarily wanting it. Also recommend, if you're going to use multiple colors, have multiple pieces of paper coffee filters to dump them on, so you're not mixing your colors, especially if you're using clear, because it's hard to get it out. So you also want to get your heat tool. You'll want to heat it up and make sure it's hot when you go to emboss. So I'm going to let this run for just a second. Hold your heat away from you, so it's blowing air away. about 2 to 3 inches. As soon as it starts to shine, just keep moving. Okay, so that is heat embossed glitter. You can still see that it's shiny, it's glittery, it's... Okay, so had a bit of a technical issue there, so my camera shut down. So not sure what I left off with, but embossing with glitter. This one is still very shiny. It is not overly heat set, so it's worked out really well. Okay, and then we are going to also do an example on vellum. And I am going to use a different paper here so I don't mix my red. Take your anti-static tool. I forget this often and I really wish I wouldn't forget. Okay. Quick little wipe down with your anti-static. This will help all the other dust fall. And we're going to use the VersaMark again. And stamping on vellum is a little different than just stamping on regular card because it tends to bend. So I want to show you how fast it can go. And how pretty embossing on vellum is. Then you can color it with your colored pencils or markers. And behind it, behind the image, and it'll show through. It's really quite pretty. You can make windows. It would make a nice like stained glass window look for various cards or different decor projects. Okay, nice light little dusting there. And it doesn't matter how much, you know, if you want to dump the whole jar on there, it's okay. It's not going to hurt nothing. You just make sure you get it on your paper and back in the pot it goes. If you feel like you didn't get enough, you can carefully just grab some more or just pour it from the bottle. Okay, back in the pot. Okay, and I'm going to get my heat tool going. Okay, and with this, you might want to do it from the underneath side. It's a little harder, but you can see it melt really quickly. I hope you can see that. Okay, done. And I hope that showed up a little better to see how quickly it changes. You can see it go from the powder to the shine in just a few seconds. Not sure how that's gonna look. Oh. So put a piece of paper under it so you can see. And then if you were to color the underside of this, the color will show through. Very pretty. And I'm going to also show you one more. I should be doing this on like a color cardstock or something, but we're going to do it in the VersaMark. Let's go Warm Breeze. That's right there. So you can also stamp with your colored inks, and you know, you could of course use clear or your clear sparkle. You can also double layer your colors to give a different kind of effect. Just remember, or you might want to practice on a practice piece first. Just so we don't have too much excess powder. Okay, so let's just do this one with maybe, I don't know, let's just do clear, because that's what I've been talking about. This is my favorite. Clear gloss, super fine. It's the best. And it's a really thick powder. Patty is now carrying these larger sizes. I've had this one for 3 years, and if you can tell, it's just under the rim, and I use this a lot. Like, I only just discovered colored embossing powders that are pretty good colors in the last year. Not even that, probably the last 6 months. Because I just didn't have them. I had clear, it was working, and sometimes you just stick with what works for you. But sometimes it's nice to be adventurous and try something new. Okay, so heat tool on. And okay, so Warm Breeze, clear, really pretty. I'm going to make all these into Christmas cards, so they will be used. I'll post them on our Facebook page so you guys can check them out and let me know which favorite is. I appreciate that. I always like to know everybody's favorites. So some other things you can use embossing powders on. This is a card I did last week. Pre-did the background, gel plate, Gelandar, stamped with the Nocturne, and embossed with the Clear Sparkle. And then the foliage, I just used the VersaMark stamp or VersaMark ink to stamp with, and did the this is the Spring Breeze, and then the purple, or looks purple, it's Persian Indigo, so it's got a blue powder with purple glitter, pretty. And then the red was the Ruby Romance, and these are all glitters, every one of them. So all the sparkle that's on there is from the embossing powders. Okay, so this is another project I did, and if you use die cuts and you want them to hold a shape, you can simply cut them out, ink them up. If you already inked them up, and then you cut them out, just use your VersaMark ink pad and just go over the entire image, and then use your clear gloss, and it will turn your paper into basically a plastic. So every one of these die cuts, minus the background, I did that. So it holds this form, it holds its shape. I wanted this to be pretty 3D, if you can see how that comes off the board. Every one of them is a 3D shape, and that clear embossing powder just helped so much. You can also emboss on tiles. Takes a long time. Your substrate that you are embossing on has to reach the temperature of your embossing powder, so be aware that it takes extra time. You can also emboss on wood. That works out pretty well too. I don't have my example. Yes, I do. 1 second. Okay, sorry. So this is something else I made, and this is just a wood dollar store cutout. Painted it, stenciled it, stamped it with the VersaMark, or the, excuse me, VersaFine Clear Nocturne, and then used the clear embossing powder. I hope, I don't know if you can see that kind of glisten. That's from the clear. And it's actually pretty quick on this real fine wood. And then this is one I did a tile. This is a ceramic tile that I made into a coaster. I stamped with, I believe I stamped with the VersaFine Clear and then did the clear sparkle. This is on tile. This probably took about 5 minutes to heat emboss. Very slow going, but it works. So I'd love to see any projects that you guys make. I hope that you found this tutorial useful. I hope you got some good tips and you'll give it a try. Highly recommend the super fine to start out with, and then move your way up to the glitters. I do find that the glitters are the hardest. So anyways, thank you for joining me. If you haven't done so already and you're on Facebook, please join our Facebook groups. We have 2. We have Bello's Designs Lounge for Lavinia stamps and Bello's Designs Lounge a la carte for other items that Patty sells in her shop. And embossing powder is one thing that she sells, along with the Sweet Poppy stencils and all the inks, all the supplies. Please check us out on our Facebook groups, and we really appreciate any comments. Please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions at all, please leave me a comment below, or you can find me very easily on Facebook, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you guys. Have a great day.